This week in post, artistic license and the ability to push color in our landscape photos. Hey everyone, I'm Scott Davenport. Welcome to In Post. This week we're talking about pushing color and artistic license in landscapes. Before I show you a couple of things I did to a particular photo that changed it from how it was in reality to how I wanted to convey the scene, I guess I wanted to touch on the whole question about post-processing, how much is too much, or should it be done, should it not be done? And I think that it basically comes down for me to two things. One is your genre of photography. Now, if you're doing street photography, you're probably not wanting to do a lot of manipulation. You want to capture life as it's happening. Very true for photojournalism. Right? You do not edit the photos. A little bit of contrast, that's probably about it. I'm not a photojournalist, so I don't know for sure. If you are, drop a comment. Let us know what exactly is considered kosher or not for that type of processing. But to me, it's minimal at best. Maybe just shoot a JPEG and call it good kind of thing. But for landscapes, I think of those more like paintings. The painter decides, I want this to be this shade of purple or this tone of orange or whatnot. And I feel that there's much more artistic license with landscapes, and we can take things in very different directions just depending on our mood. So I want to show you a photo that I did from the Sunset Cliffs outing. If you saw in the field earlier in the week, this is one of those photos from that, and some things I did with color to kind of push things in the direction that I wanted them to go. So here's this photo, and you can tell right away this is a long exposure. The clouds are streaking through the sky, and that was the first stylistic choice that I made in camera. Just put a big old ND on there and let the clouds move along and drag it out there. What I want to show you is what I did with color here. So here's the preview of what came out of the camera. So backslash. This is pretty dull, and especially the foreground. The foreground is very, very deep in shadow. The sun's still peeking through the clouds, but overall for the scene, the foreground's very, very dark. So the normal type things happen. Open up the shadows, you rein in the highlights a little bit, standard type things you've seen me do many, many times. What I want to call attention to is the color. You saw these cliffs now are looking much more orange. And well, I know that they're orange because I've been to this place a bunch of times, and I wanted to bring that back out in this photo. And the way that I did that, some basics with hue, saturation, luminance, where you'll see the oranges and the yellows have been boosted up. But that only takes us so far. Real magic is I used a graduated filter, and let me find my pin. There it is. So if I just hover over that, you're going to see this interesting looking mask. Let me tap on it once. So now I've activated that particular gradient. So I used the gradient tool to begin with, just to position something to cover the lower portion of the frame. Now, ideally, Lightroom would have hue, saturation, and luminance controls for each color in these adjustment brushes, gradients, and so forth. But they don't. They really should, but they don't. So for me to only affect the cliffs, I put down the gradient and then used the brushing tools where you can use the erase portion and then kind of just wiggle on through here to get a mask that looks kind of like this. The real magic here is this little color swatch. You can see I'm bumping up clarity, I'm adding contrast, I'm opening the shadows up even more. But then this little color swatch, I chose this lightish, lightly saturated tone of orange. And that's being applied only to the foreground cliffs because of my mask. And what that does is it gives it a nice little hint of orange. It gives it a little bit of a kick so that you get a little more boost there. Now, so that was all the stuff I did in Lightroom, and I was pretty happy with the photo color-wise. There's one other thing I wanted to do, so I'm going to bring this over into the OnOne suite and show you a little bit of extra color play I did here. Now, here's the photo in OnOne, and I have this in layers. I did up some basic effects on it. Let me turn on the effects that I chose to add there. So this is adding a little bit of contrast in the foreground. You're going to see the blues open up a little bit, a tiny bit of vignette, but that just gets a little bit richer. The extra magic was adding a color fill layer, and you'll see before, after, the sky just becomes that nice bit more warmer. And this is a technique that I like to use a lot. OnOne makes it very simple to do, but you can use a luminosity mask in conjunction with a color fill layer. So you add a color fill layer using this little guy here, and then you select that layer and do mask, create a luminosity mask. Now what that does, if I press the O key, you're going to see most of this looks like it's red. It's kind of hard to see. If I switch the view mode to grayscale, now we're looking at the mask. This is not a black and white version of the photo. We're looking at the mask, like this part right here. And the bright parts get the orange applied and the dark parts don't. So there's a very intricate mask, all these little, little tiny places. If I toggle on and off a couple of times, look at the sky, the whiter portions of the clouds and the highlights in the clouds are getting kissed with orange. Look at the foreground. There's tiny bits of spaces like way down and over in here where the sun is hitting, and that's getting a nice little extra boost of orange. It's a very low opacity. This one actually this one's relatively heavy for the effect. Sometimes I only use it about 15 and maybe 10% of the color. But it's a nice little extra, I want to nudge colors in the right direction. So one other trick you can put into your toolbox for nudging color in the direction you want to go. The tip of the week, you can push color in your landscapes to suit your artistic purposes. At least that's my opinion. I could be wrong. Some people want to stay very true to the scene. That's awesome. If you'd like to push color in crazy directions, that's awesome too. It's really up to what you like to do. I tend to want to be on the natural side, but I personally don't have an issue of pushing colors in the directions I want them to go to enforce a particular mood or just amplify a particular color. And that wraps up this week in post. I hope that you have enjoyed it. And if you did, please let me know. Shoot me a message. You can contact me directly through my website. Ask questions. Questions are awesome. They help me come up with more ideas for shows. It really helps because I don't know what you're thinking about or what you might be struggling with, whether it's field work, post-processing work, whatever it might be. Photographic, shoot me a question, and I will do my best to help you out, or at least point you somewhere that someone has more knowledge than me on a particular subject. If you come to me asking me about street photography, I'm going to send you somewhere else, but I will send you somewhere else as opposed to ignore you. But until next time, my name is Scott Davenport. Happy shooting.